The imperial palace of Ottoman Constantinople shimmered under the autumn moonlight of 1875, its marble facades glowing with the soft amber of oil lamps. Inside, the Topkapi Palace's labyrinthine corridors buzzed with whispers of an impending royal visit from the Russian envoys. But for Katarina Javadi, daughter of the Sultan's Persian physician, the palace was simply home, a gilded cage she had known since childhood. "Hold still, Lady Katarina," her maid murmured, pinning another pearl into her dark hair. "The Valide Sultan will be displeased if you're late to the reception." Katarina gazed at her reflection in the polished silver mirror. At 22, her almond eyes held a wisdom beyond her years, the legacy of watching court intrigues unfold around her since girlhood. Born to a Persian father who had saved the Sultan's favorite son from fever and a Greek mother who had once been a palace translator, Katarina existed in the liminal spaces of the imperial world, neither royal nor servant, neither fully Ottoman nor fully outsider. "There," the maid said, stepping back. "You look every inch the lady your mother raised you to be." Katarina smoothed the silk of her gown, deep blue with silver thread that caught the lamplight. "Thank you, Nesrin. Though I doubt anyone will notice me among all the princesses and dignitaries." Nesrin clicked her tongue. "That Russian gentleman certainly noticed you in the garden yesterday." Heat rose to Katarina's cheeks. "He was lost. I merely pointed him toward the divan chambers." "If you say so, my lady." Nesrin's eyes twinkled with mischief. "Though I've never seen anyone so lost they needed directions for a full 30 minutes. The palace bells chimed the hour, and Katarina hurried through the women's quarters toward the grand reception hall. The palace at night transformed from administrative center to mysterious wonderland, with shadows dancing along the intricately tiled walls and the soft babble of fountains providing a melodic backdrop to hushed conversations. As she approached the grand hall, a figure stepped from an alcove, startling her. "Forgive me, Lady Katarina." The voice was deep, accented, but his Turkish was surprisingly good. "I was hoping to encounter you again." Quentin Vaughan stood before her, his tall frame silhouetted against the lantern light. The third son of a British diplomat posted to St. Petersburg, he had come as part of the Russian delegation, a complicated position that mirrored her own hybrid existence. His auburn hair was neatly trimmed in the European fashion, but his clothing nodded to Ottoman sensibilities with its embroidered vest over Western formal wear. "Lord Vaughan," she acknowledged with a small curtsy. "It's improper for us to speak without a chaperone." His lips curved upward, not in mockery but in genuine amusement. "Yet here we are. I wanted to thank you for your assistance yesterday. The palace is a marvel, but I fear I would still be wandering its halls without your intervention." "Anyone would have done the same," she replied, though they both knew this wasn't true. Most court ladies would have summoned a guard rather than personally escort a foreign visitor. "I doubt that." His green eyes studied her face with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "You speak 7 languages, know the history of every room in this palace, and still claim to be anyone." She glanced down the corridor, aware of the risk they were taking. "How did you know about the languages?" "Your father mentioned it when he treated my recurring headaches." "He's quite proud of you." Quentin stepped back, creating a respectable distance between them as footsteps approached. "Perhaps you might show me the palace library tomorrow?" "For diplomatic purposes, of course." Before she could respond, a group of ladies-in-waiting rounded the corner. Katarina quickly moved past him with a formal nod. "The library closes at sunset, Lord Vaughan." "Good evening." The reception unfolded with the precision of a theatrical production. The Sultan presided from his jeweled throne while dignitaries presented gifts and pledged various forms of allegiance or cooperation. Katarina stood among the educated women of the court, there to provide translations if needed, though official translators handled most communications. Throughout the evening, she felt Lord Vaughan's gaze upon her, though he never approached. Instead, he conversed with ambassadors and ministers, occasionally laughing at diplomatic jokes while sipping sherbet instead of the wine offered to non-Muslim guests. "The English lord seems quite taken with the palace architecture," murmured Layla, daughter of the Grand Vizier. "He hasn't stopped staring at our section all evening." "The tilework is particularly fine in this hall," Katarina replied evenly. "Indeed." Layla's tone suggested she wasn't fooled. "Though I believe he's more interested in Persian Greek craftsmanship than Ottoman ceramics." As the evening wound down and the Sultan retired, Katarina found herself near the garden entrance. A folded paper appeared in her hand as she passed a potted orange tree, pressed there so discreetly she couldn't identify who had delivered it. In the privacy of her chamber, she unfolded the note. Written in flawless Persian was a poem by Hafez, speaking of gardens and hidden meetings. Below it, in Turkish, the Imperial Library. "Noon tomorrow. Your father has approved my request for a scholarly guide." Her heart raced. Her father, pragmatic, brilliant Dr. Javadi, had never encouraged potential suitors. What had made Lord Vaughan different? The following day, Katarina arrived at the library precisely at noon. The cavernous room, with its thousands of manuscripts and scrolls, stood largely empty during midday when most courtiers napped or took refreshments. Lord Vaughan waited near the astronomy section, examining a celestial chart. He wore simpler clothes than the previous evening, the attire of a scholar rather than a diplomat. "You came," he said, relief evident in his voice. "My father arranged it." I could hardly refuse. She kept her tone professional, though her pulse betrayed her composure. "Dr. Javadi is a remarkable man." Quentin returned the chart to its place. He recognized my interest was genuine. "Interest in Ottoman astronomy?" she asked, gesturing to the charts. "Interest in his daughter." His directness startled her. "Forgive me. In England, we might spend months dancing around such matters, but my time here is limited, and I've learned enough of Eastern poetry to value the truth plainly spoken." Katarina moved toward the window, ostensibly to adjust the light for reading. "Lord Vaughan, Quentin, please." "Lord Vaughan," she insisted, "whatever impression you've formed of me, I must correct it. I am not a princess or even a proper lady by your country's standards. My position here is complicated." He joined her at the window, careful to maintain a respectable distance. "As is mine. Third son of a minor viscount, sent to Russia because I speak the language, attached to this delegation because I've studied Ottoman culture. Too educated to be useful in England, too common to advance in diplomacy." The honesty in his assessment surprised her. "Then why are you here?" "Originally? To fulfill my duty to family and crown." His gaze wandered to the Bosphorus visible beyond the palace walls. "But now I find myself with a more compelling reason to remain in Constantinople." Their meetings continued through the autumn, always in public spaces, always with the pretext of cultural exchange. Katarina showed him the palace's famed manuscript collection, explained the complex hierarchy of the imperial harem system, and translated inscriptions on architectural wonders. Quentin shared insights from his travels across Europe, discussed British parliamentary politics, and once, daringly, read English poetry to her in a quiet corner of the garden. "Your Turkish has improved remarkably," she noted one crisp November afternoon as they walked through the palace's inner courtyard, a respectful distance between them despite their growing closeness. "I have an excellent teacher in you," he replied, "though my Persian remains embarrassingly rudimentary." "Perhaps because you insist on discussing philosophical abstractions rather than learning practical phrases first." Her eyes twinkled with gentle teasing. "I find my heart beats only for you are far more practical than where is the nearest hammam." She laughed, quickly covering her mouth. "You are incorrigible, Lord Vaughan. And you are extraordinary, Lady Javadi." Their conversation was interrupted by a palace guard approaching with a formal bow. Lady Katarina, your father requests your immediate presence. The summons led to devastating news. Her father, standing grave-faced in their family quarters, informed her that political tensions between the Empire and Russia were escalating. The Russian delegation would depart within 3 days, and the British envoys with them. "I've arranged a final meeting for you," Dr. Javadi said, his weathered face soft with understanding. "Tomorrow at sunset in the library. The palace gates will close early due to the diplomatic situation, so he must leave before nightfall." Katarina's composure nearly crumbled. "Father, I know, my daughter." He took her hands in his. "In my years treating the powerful, I've seen how fleeting true connections can be. I would not deny you this farewell." The following day, Katarina waited in the library with a heaviness in her heart. When Quentin arrived, his normally confident stride was hesitant, his expression a careful mask that failed to hide his distress. 3 months ago, I would have accepted this departure as the natural conclusion of a diplomatic posting, he said without preamble. Now I find the thought of leaving Constantinople, leaving you, unbearable. We always knew your stay was temporary, she responded, though each word felt like a betrayal of her true feelings. Come with me. The words burst from him with unexpected force. To England, or to my next posting. Your languages would be valued anywhere. We could abandon my father? My home. She shook her head sadly. The world outside these walls hasn't shown much kindness to women of mixed heritage, Lord Vaughan. Quentin, he corrected automatically, then stepped closer. I know I ask for much. Too much, perhaps. But these past months have shown me what I never found in London drawing rooms or St. Petersburg ballrooms, someone who sees the world with both critical eyes and an open heart. A palace attendant appeared at the doorway. The gates close in 30 minutes, sir. All visitors must depart. Quentin nodded his acknowledgement before turning back to Katarina. I have something for you. He pressed a small leather-bound book into her hands. My direction will be written inside, wherever I may be posted. If you ever change your mind, or simply wish to correspond. Thank you, she whispered, clutching the volume. I will treasure it. Their farewell was painfully formal, a bow, a curtsy, words of diplomatic pleasantry that masked the turmoil beneath. As he walked away, Katarina felt as though a vital part of herself departed with him. That night, after the palace gates had closed, she opened the book. It was an English collection of Persian poetry in translation. Inside the cover, he had written not just an address in London, but a passage in careful Persian script, when the palace gates close at night, remember that dawn always follows. My heart remains within these walls with you. Winter descended upon Constantinople with unusual ferocity. Snow blanketed the palace gardens, and bitter winds howled off the Bosphorus. Katarina threw herself into her duties, assisting her father and translating diplomatic correspondence for the Sultan's advisors. She wrote to Quentin weekly, sending the letters through her father's diplomatic contacts. His replies came less frequently due to the unreliable postal service between empires, but each one sustained her through the dark winter days. He had returned briefly to London before being assigned to the British Embassy in Vienna, close enough to give her hope, yet still separated by empires and conventions. In early spring, tragedy struck. Her father collapsed while treating the Sultan's youngest son. Within days, Dr. Javadi was gone, leaving Katarina truly alone in the palace world. The Valide Sultan, respecting her father's years of service, allowed her to remain as a translator and tutor to the younger royal children, but her position grew increasingly precarious without her father's protection. Her letters to Quentin took on a new desperation, though she tried to maintain her dignified composure. The palace that was once my home now feels like borrowed space. Father's quarters have been reassigned, and I've been moved to smaller rooms near the women's education hall. The children I teach bring me joy, but I feel increasingly invisible, a ghost of the previous sultan's reign, tolerated out of tradition rather than necessity. Months passed with no reply. Katarina feared her letters weren't reaching Vienna, or worse, that Quentin had moved on to a new life where memories of Constantinople had faded. Then in midsummer, a package arrived via the French embassy, a collection of botanical drawings with a note explaining his silence, "Forgive my lack of correspondence. I've been traveling through the Balkan provinces on a diplomatic mission with limited postal service. Your letters reached me all at once upon my return to Vienna. The news of your father deeply grieved me. I remember his kindness, his wisdom, and most of all, his love for you. If your situation has become untenable, please know that my offer stands. More than stands, it has grown in conviction with each passing day." The letter continued with practical details, how she might travel to Vienna if she wished, the position he could arrange for her as a translator for the embassy, the modest but comfortable life they might build. The final paragraph held words that brought tears to her eyes. "I dare not write more explicitly, knowing your letters may be read by palace officials. But know that the feelings born in those quiet library afternoons have only deepened with distance. Whatever you decide, I remain your devoted servant." Autumn returned, marking a year since their first meeting. Political tensions had eased somewhat, and the palace prepared for another season of diplomatic receptions. Katarina, now serving primarily as a language tutor to royal children and occasional translator for the women's quarters, watched the preparations with a strange detachment. "You should attend the reception," urged Nesrin, now the personal attendant to one of the younger princesses but still fond of Katarina. "The new British ambassador is bringing a large entourage. Perhaps there will be news of your friend." "My presence would be inappropriate now," Katarina replied softly. "My position is not what it was." Nevertheless, she found herself drifting toward the reception hall on the evening of the event, drawn by memories and faint hope. Keeping to the shadows of the women's observation gallery, she watched dignitaries and royalty exchange elaborate courtesies below. The British delegation entered with typical ceremonial flourish. Her heart leapt at the sight of auburn hair among them, but as the man turned, disappointment washed over her. It was not Quentin, merely someone of similar coloring. As the formal presentations concluded and the gathering dispersed into conversation groups, Katarina retreated from her viewing position. She had been foolish to hope. The night air called to her, and she slipped out to the small garden where she had first given Quentin directions a year ago. The autumn moon illuminated the same paths, the same ancient trees, but everything felt different. She sat on a marble bench, remembering how he had commented on the mathematical precision of the garden's layout while somehow missing the correct path to the divan chambers. "I believe I'm lost again," came a voice from the shadows. Though this time, deliberately so. She stood abruptly, heart pounding. Quentin stepped into the moonlight, resplendent in diplomatic formal wear but with eyes only for her. "How," she began. "I've been reassigned to Constantinople." He moved closer, close enough that she could see the fatigue of travel in his face, but also the unmistakable joy. "The previous envoy fell ill, and I may have exaggerated my indispensability to Ottoman relations." Katarina's composure faltered. "You came back." "I never truly left." His voice softened. "Not in any way that mattered." He reached for her hand, a bold gesture in the conservative palace setting, but the garden was empty save for them. "I've spent a year seeking the right words in 7 languages, but find myself returning to simple English. I love you, Katarina. I loved you when I left, and I love you more now, having known what it is to be without you." She looked down at their joined hands. "My position here has changed. I'm practically a servant now." "And I'm practically a nuisance to the Foreign Office," he countered with a gentle smile. "Always requesting Ottoman postings, learning obscure dialects no gentleman needs, writing lengthy reports on cultural matters when they only want trade information." Despite herself, she laughed. We're a fine pair of misfits. We are. His expression grew serious. Katarina, I've secured a permanent posting here, 3 years minimum. I've also acquired a house in the diplomatic quarter. It needs a mistress, preferably one who can translate when my Turkish fails me, who understands both worlds we inhabit. She caught her breath. Are you proposing marriage? I am. Though I've done the improper thing and spoken to your father already, last year before his passing. His eyes held hers steadily. He gave his blessing, contingent on your happiness. Said something rather poetic about how palace walls shouldn't contain a spirit meant to explore the world. Tears welled in her eyes. It sounded exactly like her father, practical yet surprisingly romantic when it mattered most. The Sultan would need to approve my departure. Already arranged, through your father's old connections in court and my diplomatic channels. Your years of service are recognized, your freedom granted with the Sultan's blessing. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. I carry this everywhere, hoping for this moment. Inside lay a ring, not the ostentatious diamond of European aristocracy, but an exquisite piece that honored both their worlds, a deep blue sapphire surrounded by small pearls in a setting that echoed Ottoman artistic patterns while remaining elegantly British. Yes, she whispered, before he could formally ask. Yes to all of it. His smile rivaled the moonlight as he slipped the ring onto her finger. In the distance, the palace bells began to chime, signaling the closing of the gates for the night. Visitors would normally rush to leave, but Quentin made no move to depart. Aren't you concerned about the gates? She asked. Not at all. He drew her gently into his arms, still maintaining the restraint their surroundings demanded. I have diplomatic residence privileges now. The gates may close, but I need not leave. So this is merely the beginning, she marveled, looking up at him. Precisely. He brushed a tentative kiss across her forehead. When the palace gates close tonight, our true story begins. In the months that followed, Katarina and Quentin were married in a ceremony that bridged their different worlds, a small service at the British Embassy followed by traditional Persian blessings in deference to her heritage. The diplomatic community embraced the multilingual bride who could navigate Ottoman society with unparalleled grace, while her connections to the palace ensured Quentin's posting became one of unusual access and effectiveness. Their home in the diplomatic quarter became known for its salon gatherings, where ideas flowed freely across cultural boundaries. Katarina, once contained within palace walls, now traveled alongside her husband throughout the Ottoman provinces, recording and translating local customs that might otherwise have been lost to history. And each night, when the city gates closed and lanterns illuminated Constantinople's ancient skyline, they would often stand on their balcony overlooking the Bosphorus, marveling at how the end of one chapter had truly been just the beginning of their greatest adventure.